Judas, is it with a kiss that you betray the Son of Man?
Hello, I'm Robbie. On here, I am Templar Knight. Every person who believes in God but does not go to church has a story why. But whenever two or more people gather in God's name, He is there. So this is church. Welcome. I'm glad that you're here. So we have been doing this series that I called Fate, studying about Judas Iscariot, how he betrayed Jesus, who he was, and what we can learn from his story. I had expected to end this back on Easter, but apparently God had another lesson for this series. I don't entirely know if this one counts because it's not exactly about Judas, but it fits the time frame, and it's about one of his friends. It's about another disciple whose name was Didymus, or he was also called Thomas. Now, like most of the disciples, there's not a lot about Thomas that sets him apart from the others. The Bible doesn't go into great detail about the disciples. In fact, the one thing that we really know Thomas for is what happens right where we left off in the story. Because 2 weeks ago was Easter. So we talked about how after Jesus was crucified, he said that in 3 days he would come back. So in 3 days, when they came to mourn at the tomb, they found the tomb empty, and an angel telling them, Jesus isn't here. Y'all need to go to Galilee and meet up with him there. So most of them did. Most of them. Thomas didn't quite get that memo. So when the crew came back and they told him, dude, we just went and met up with Jesus, Thomas wasn't sure. He was a little skeptical, and he was like, man, I ain't buying it. I am not going to believe that it is him until I see the holes in his hands and I feel the gap that the spear left in his side. So shortly after, Jesus shows up, and he shows Thomas the holes in his hands. He lets him feel where he was stabbed by that spear. Seeing this, Thomas realizes this is truly Jesus. He had indeed come back from the dead. The reason this is important is because in John chapter 20, verse 19, Jesus tells Thomas, because you have seen me, you have believed. But blessed are those who have not seen and still believed. Now, why is it that Thomas, someone who spent 3 years traveling, being a disciple with Jesus, a dude who had seen all these amazing miracles Jesus performed, why would he of all people doubt that when Jesus says, hey, after 3 days, I'm going to rise from the dead? And then he did. Why was it that Thomas did not believe? I was like, for us, we look at this story and we're just like, dude, you knew Jesus. You had seen him with your own eyes. You had seen the miracles he could perform. And when he said he would defeat death, you didn't believe him? Bruh. Thomas had lost his faith, and it wasn't restored until he saw Jesus and confirmed that it was indeed him. Thomas needed that proof. And this is the same thing we hear when so many people either don't believe in God or they do believe, but they don't follow the path he sets before them. They need to see. They need to be sure. They want that proof that it's all real. They don't just want to take it on faith. They want to know. But sometimes we just have to believe in things that we can't see, but we still know they're there. Prime example. This is an egg. I just pulled it out of the fridge before stream, and it's just been sitting here. Now this egg has no control over what happens to it. It can't decide what it's going to do, where it wants to be, or how I'm going to cook it up someday. Now, what would happen if I just loosened my grip and I let go? Did you seriously think I was going to drop it? I mean, it'd be a good demonstration, but seriously, no. We all know what would happen. The egg would fall. It would find its way to the ground as quickly as possible, and I would have a mess to clean up, and you would get to hear my wife laughing at me in the background. But why would this egg fall? It doesn't choose to fall. It certainly didn't want to. But the egg is not in control. And the moment I let go of that egg, something else takes over. It's called gravity. But what is gravity? I've never seen gravity. How can gravity exist if I can't see it with my own eyes, if I can't touch it with my hands? How do I know gravity is real? But wait, I've heard this argument before. I've heard people say, I've never seen God. How can I know God exists if I can't see him with my own eyes? If I can't touch him with my own hands? How can I know God is real? Wait, I've heard this argument before. I've heard people say, I've never seen God's plan for me. How can I know he has a plan if I can't see it, if I can't touch it? How do I know his plan is real? Because just like gravity, we can see what it does. Just like the wind. A far better preacher than me, Billy Graham, he was quoted to have said, I have never seen the wind. Have you seen the wind? I have seen the effects of the wind, but I've never seen the wind. I've never seen God. Have you seen God? I've seen the effects of God, but I've never seen him. So do I believe in gravity? Yeah. Because if I let that egg go, I believe it's going to fall. Do I believe in the wind? Yes. Because I've seen it move leaves and shake trees. I have felt a breeze so gentle, like a caress wiping away a tear. And I have seen wind in such a fury that it destroys towns and cities, leaving devastation in its path. Do I believe in God? Yes. I have never seen him. I have seen his love and his power take action. Do I believe God has a plan for all of us? Most definitely. because I've seen his plan unfold behind me. Now, I have no idea where his plan is going in front of me. But if I look back, I can see all of the things that happened that were a part of God's plan for my life. How do I see it? How do I find it? How do I know? It's simple. I'm looking for it. It's amazing how much we miss when we're not just flat out looking for it. God has a plan, and I got to see it recently. So I want to talk about that real quick. I want to look back at a handful of stepping stones that got us here to this lesson today. Now, not all the things that it took, but just a handful of them. So often I pray, and I'm asking God to use me. I'll say, send me, I'll go. If there is anything you need, I am right here. So God found a way to tell me 2 months that I need to study about Judas. That this next Bible study is going to be on Judas Iscariot. Now, I won't go into all of the steps that it took for that exchange to happen, but there was a person who was in the right place at the right time to inspire such an odd series. So a study about Judas, focusing and reading and learning about what became an inspiring lesson about forgiveness and repentance. To me, that's what it all boiled down to. And last week, after that lesson, someone else was in the right place at the right time to request that we study Thomas. So this week, that's where my mind was, on Thomas and his need for proof. Now, many of you know that on Thursdays here on Twitch, we have a hangout night. It's fellowship. We chill and we relax, and we're around and available to talk about whatever. And there's always something going on that, keep my hands busy, keep my mind busy. But for the most part, I'm here to talk. And so this week, we were just hanging out, listening to music, building Legos. And in my 2 years of streaming, something that has never happened before, but for some reason, I got placed on a recommended list. And instead of the usual 50 unique viewers that we have popping in, we had over 500 people. Now, only a small portion of those people who popped in for a few seconds actually stayed and talked. But hearing that we do this Bible study on Sunday, one of those people decided to open up and started talking about the struggle he was having. And guess what he was struggling with? Forgiveness. Well, guess what? I was prepared. I'd spent the last 2 months studying up on this. So we put the Legos aside. I completely forgot about being a streamer for a little bit and making content. And for a good 15 minutes, we had church. Now, if I look back at everything that God put in place for that single interaction to happen, not just on my side, but for this other person, everything that God had to do to bring them into the stream of a complete random stranger so that God could use that stranger to tell them that God forgives you and he still loves you. Because those words had to be said. And God made all of these things happen so that that one interaction could take place. So here's the difference between believing and knowing. If 2 months ago Jesus had shown up on my door, proven to me that it was indeed him and said, Robbie, I need you to study up. I need you to be fresh and ready with knowledge on forgiveness and repentance. Because in 2 months, I'm going to make sure that someone comes to your stream on a Thursday. And I need you to get them to open up and talk. And when they're ready, I need you to tell them that I forgive what they have done and I still love them. And I need you to explain repentance. I need this interaction to happen because I have a plan for this person down the road. And this is one of the stepping stones in their path. Now, if Jesus had shown upon my door and told me that, I would have known. I would have known because Jesus asked me and told me what I had to do. Honestly, I probably would have taken it a bit more seriously. I look back, and now I know. I look back, and I see all of the plans God put into motion. If I look forward, this is where I have to believe. I believe that God has a plan. I believe that God has a plan for you. I believe that this story didn't end on Thursday. This was just one of the many stepping stones that had to happen for God's plan to unfold. I don't know where it goes next. I just know that I want to be a part of it. Let's take a second and reflect on our own lives. Look back at all of these steps God has taken in his plan for you. Can you see it? If you're looking, do you see all of the things God did? The conversations, the interactions with people. Do you see all the signs God put in your path? Because if I look back, that's all I see. God saying, go here, do this, say this. I need this interaction to happen. That's the path God has for me. And by seeing where I've come from, when I look forward, when you look forward, are you just trying to find the next step you're supposed to take? Or are you blindly staring at your feet, so focused on where your life is right now? The most important thing that I can teach you from this whole experience: give God a way to talk to you. and He will. Give God a way to guide you, and He will show you the way. Most importantly, when God shows you His path, follow it. Don't be like Thomas and doubting. I don't know where God is taking me. But when He finds a way to tell me, turn here, I turn. And by watching for these signs telling me where to go, by not just staring at my current position and where I'm at, constantly looking around, just waiting for God to put another sign that says, this is your exit. Go here. Do this. Study this. Talk about this. I have a plan. It might not make sense right now, but it will. And when you are looking for how God is trying to reach you with what He has planned for your life, you will see some amazing things. You will see how truly blessed you are and what God is willing to do for you. It's been over 2 years now since we've been doing this Bible study. And at the end of every stream, I end with the same words. And tonight, I understand why. Well, it's getting to be that time. But before I go, I want to let you know that I'm glad you were here tonight. God has a plan for you. So keep an eye out for those neon lit billboards. Because if you ever feel like you are lost and you're alone, know that He is doing His best to help you find your way. He loves you. And He will always be there for you. I'm Robbie. This is church.